there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to have fun with some gems, creating a centerpiece for a card. I'm going to start off with some tumbled glass distress oxide ink, and I am just going to ink blend it using a mini ink blending tool. This one happens to be from Ranger, but there are lots and lots on the market these days, so just have a look around. Now, you could also just start with a light blue piece of paper or whatever color that you would like for your project. I wasn't, as usual, exactly sure where I was going, so I did decide to do my own, but it would be perfectly fine to start with a colored piece of paper. Then I have this background stamp here, and I am going to use my stamping platform. This one is the Tim Holtz one. And I'm going to pop it down kind of right in the middle because I want my pattern to cover up as much as I can at the moment. Now I'm going to put it right in the middle, and you can see this background stamp is kind of in two pieces. So I'm going to line up both the middle and the outer stamp and then pull the lid down. Then I'm going to use my little embossing bag here, and that just puts a little light layer of powder on, and that will stop any stray embossing powder going where we don't want it to. Then I'm using my VersaMark, which is just a sticky embossing ink, and I am going to just put it all over the stamp and then emboss it in some bright white embossing powder. Again, this was kind of just to create some extra detail because obviously the main detail is going to be the gems in the picture. However, it's always nice to have kind of something else to look at, and I didn't want the blank spaces in between to be too blank. Now, something that you could also do that I had thought about was that I thought I might even watercolor this first using different shades of blue. However, I decided to just go ahead and focus on the gems. Now, these are the four colors that I am using today, and again, they're just all different shades of blue. All of these gems are from Alina Crafts on Aliexpress, and I will link to them down below. And on Alina's site, you can get a small and a large of most of these colors, and these are the small version of all of them. And now I'm kind of ready to go. I've tipped out a little pile of each, and these are two options that I have. I have this quick stick tool from We Are Memory Keepers, and it has kind of a sticky end at one end and then like a pokey tool that comes in and out at the other end. And then there are these wax pencils. Now these ones are from AliExpress, and you get two in a packet. And then I also have my glue here. Of course, in this little glue bottle, the bottle is from Ali, and then inside of the glue bottle is some Ranger Multi-Medium in a matte finish glue, and that just means that if anything comes out the side, then it won't leave kind of little glossy marks or anything. Now, I was a little bit dubious about this wax pencil because when you kind of touch it with your hand, it doesn't feel sticky and it doesn't feel like it would pick up the gems or anything. However, it does a really good job, and I use both. I went between my quick stick tool and this little wax pencil, and most definitely by far I prefer this little wax pencil. Now it's just a normal pencil, and you just sharpen it with a normal little pencil sharpener. However, it's brilliant. It kind of has enough stick to pick up the gems, but then as soon as I place it down on the liquid glue, it never once kind of held onto the gem, and I didn't have to pry it off with my fingers or another tool in my other hand. So I must say I am now converted to appreciating these little wax pencils, and that would be my go-to next time as well. Now I'm just using a whole heap of different colors here to kind of go with the pattern roughly, and this is how it ended up. And I don't need to cover my whole piece, although you could go for gold, but this was all I needed to do for now. And then moving on to get the other parts of the card ready, I'm just using my little trick here with my Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide, and I'm just moving my piece of post-it note tape around the edges. And again, this just creates a nice colored border, and it is instead of adding a matting layer for me. This is what I often choose to do. It just makes the card a little bit lighter and kind of saves on an extra piece of paper, but still gives it that nice border that I think makes it stand out a little bit more. Then I decided that I wasn't sure what I was doing for a sentiment. So I have this scrap piece here that actually has stamping on the back of it. But what I'm going to do is, you saw me ink it up, and I think I dried it with my heat tool in between. I used my little embossing bag to take away any static, and then I'm going to stamp it in my VersaMark, and the little sentiment says, "Happy birthday to you," with an exclamation mark at the end. And in a second, you're going to see why I was so indecisive. I am melting this sentiment with my heat tool, and then I'm going to take some Majestic Blue in the VersaFine ink and stamp it on the other end. Now that one I didn't feel like it looked even, so I stamped another one up above it. And I'm just going to cut out both of the sentiment strips because, as I said, I hadn't decided at this point what I wanted. So I've got both of them there, and I'll just put them to the side. And now I have this set of octagon shaped dies, and it so happens that the largest two are still connected. I don't think I've used them before. So it creates this nice tiny thin border. And then I'm going to separate the dies, and I'm using the smaller of those two I just used before to cut a hole in the middle of my little card front panel. And then this is Alina's thin foam tape, and as I've said previously, this cuts really well nicely in half, and so I'm going all along my piece, taking off the release paper off both sides, and then that way I'm able to just curve it around my octagon without any trouble at all. And I was debating whether to colour this in the blueprint sketch colour as well. However, I kept it white just for a little bit of white on white. I really want to keep the focus on the gems, seeing as that is kind of the focal point of the card. So I felt like too much blue around the outside of that, in particular being dark blue, would take a little bit away from it. So you can see the frame looks really nice there. And I'm going to cut down my panel a little bit just so that it won't interfere with anything else. You won't be able to see it coming out the sides or anything. Add a little bit of adhesive to the back side of the card front, and that is going to go directly on top of the gems panel. And then from there I am going to attach this to a card base. My card base today is a 110 pound Nina Solar white card base, and it is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card once it's all finished. So I'll pop that on using some liquid glue, and then here is where I can't decide with my sentiments. I go back and forward, back and forward. One feels too bold and one feels not bold enough. So what do? I have this leftover scrap from before, and I choose the kind of less bold sentiment and add it with a little blue background. And I feel like that is much better. I really like how that one looks, nice and simple. That is my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what you think of this card in the comment section down below, and have a think about all the cool images that you could add gems to in your stash. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!